Hello, I'm Luke, and welcome to another episode of the Vision to Victory podcast, where we discuss practical ways to turn your dreams into reality. Over the last couple of weeks, we've been talking about taking the road less traveled, and last week we unpacked what it looks like to start or embrace the adventure of life while doing it different than maybe what is the cultural norm. And today I want to talk about a very simple idea, but to unpack it in a way that is practical. And it's this. I want to talk about the topic of getting from here to there. When I talk with people about any number of life things, events, situations, relationships, work, whatever it is, I find that many of us just struggle simply to connect the dots of how do I get from where I'm at to where I want to be in any area of life, doesn't matter what it is. And so I just want to unpack. I want to spend a little time on this kind of, again, simple idea seems to get from here to there, whatever that is or whatever that looks like. But sometimes it's not so simple. And so I hope to provide a little bit of clarity for all of us on this topic. So how do we get from here to there? So here being where you are right now, and there being, of course, wherever it is that you want to be in any particular area of your life. So, I mean, this literally could be anything. Could be maybe you want to get fit or healthy, or maybe you want to make a career change, or maybe you want to go back to school, or whatever it is. Maybe you just want to, figure out what you want for your life. I mean, I talk to a lot of people. It's kind of like they just feel lost. And number one, you're not alone if that's you. And number two, you absolutely can find direction and purpose. Starting right where you're at, you can get from here to there, wherever there is, if there is purpose, meaning, living a life that's exciting to you or that you can, be motivated about, that is absolutely possible. So I just want to walk through some really simple, practical things. Simple doesn't necessarily mean easy. It just means that they are relatively straightforward. And so the first one is, in order to move forward, to make progress, to get from here to there, we have to be willing to be honest with ourselves, like brutally honest with ourselves about little things that maybe are keeping us stuck. We have to be honest with ourselves about our fears or insecurity. Whatever it is, we have to start by being honest with ourselves about why or how we are where we are. That is, that's the here. How are we here? Like, why did we get here if we aren't satisfied with it? And then only once we're honest with ourselves can we actually make progress and figure out what needs to be addressed and how to move forward. For me, I've had to do this multiple times where, I've shared this before, but when I made the decision to go back to school, for me, I started working shortly after high school and just started my career early. And I hadn't finished college, and I had known that it was always something I wanted to do, and I felt like I should do for a number of reasons. And this, to be clear, this isn't about telling anyone to go to college. That's a very personal and specific decision for each person. But for me, I knew it was something that I wanted to do, and really I felt like I needed to do. And but I put it off for a long time for a number of reasons, which I maybe wasn't honest with myself about at the time. And looking back, I can see a little more clearly maybe what kept me from going back to school for many years before I actually did go back to school and finish my bachelor's degree, and I got a master's degree, and all of this. I could have done it much sooner if I'd have just been honest with myself sooner. And what I realize now is that some of the reasons why I didn't do it sooner were self-doubt, some sort of insecurity or fear of, what if I don't have what it takes? And most people who know me would maybe think this is humorous. I think, I can come across as very confident. And today, I would say I'm a confident person. But in my younger years, I was maybe confident with a huge side of insecurity, right? And so it's not something I was maybe again overly aware of or could even articulate to myself, or again I don't think I was honest with myself. But once I reached the stage of my life where I could just be honest, like, okay, maybe I have some fear or insecurity here that I need to just take head on and be honest with myself about that, and realize that, and really make the decision that, okay, insecurity doesn't get to drive my decisions. Insecurity or fear or doubt doesn't get to drive my life. And so if I feel like I want to go to school, then I'm going to go to school no matter what my insecurity or doubts or, whatever those voices in your head are that tell you can't or you won't or whatever it is. Like you just have to, number one, address it for what it is. Okay, this is insecurity, and this is not based in reality. Or guess what? Even if there is, maybe you failed at something in the past, or maybe you struggled, in my situation, if I had struggled in school, earlier, then maybe there's some justification for why I think that. But that is never an obstacle, or it doesn't have to be an obstacle to moving forward. No matter what you've been through, no matter what you've done, no matter how many mistakes you made, you absolutely can start today and pursue what you want to do or where you would like to be. But you have to be honest with yourself about what's keeping you stuck. And so, this could be any number of things. It could be habits. Is it feelings like, I just don't feel like doing this? Or again, is it some sort of fear of failure, fear of embarrassment, whatever it might be? Is it habits? Maybe, you stay up too late. Maybe you play video games. Maybe you drink too much alcohol. Whatever it is, we have to be willing to just be relentlessly honest with ourselves. Don't try and dress it up. Don't try and dance around it or, pretend like it's something it's not. Just call it for what it is. And, just a couple other to name a few. I don't want to miss anybody, leave anybody out, right? Maybe it's procrastination, and sometimes I see this in people. We disguise procrastination as analyzing. Well, I'm just thinking through it. No, you're not. You've done enough thinking, like time to take action. And so just, again, this just really boils down to how honest are you willing to be with yourself? Another common one, phones, screens, technology, just distractions. Maybe it's just staying busy. Oh, I'm just so busy. And it never ceases to amaze me how we can find things to do to be busy so that we don't actually do the things that are maybe more difficult, but would actually get us to where we want to go. And so again, whatever it is, you have to be honest with yourself if you want to make any meaningful progress in any area of your life. If you want to get from here to there, it starts by being honest with yourself about why you're here and being honest about what you need to address to get there. So that's point number 2 is once you've been honest with yourself and done some reflection and see where the areas are that you need to work on or what it is that is keeping you stuck, you have to directly address what is keeping you from moving forward. So, metaphorically speaking, you have to just look it right in the eye and deal with it directly. I was not always this way, but today when I realize that, again, whether it's fear or doubt, if I realize that is driving my behavior in any way, now it creates this visceral reaction in me that is absolutely unacceptable. Fear doesn't get a say in what I do and who I am. And that just makes me want to address it all the more. It's kind of okay, I don't want anything, that shouldn't have a say in my life directing what I do, how I spend my time and energy. And so, we have a tendency to rationalize why we aren't moving forward instead of just being honest about it. And so I would just encourage you to, let go of your ego in this area. And because usually when we're doing that, when we're rationalizing or, kind of justifying, making excuses is really what it is, why we're not moving towards where we want to go. It's honestly usually a form of protecting ourselves from failure or embarrassment or just being uncomfortable, which, candidly, I think is human nature. But if we want to, again, make progress, get from where we are to where we want to be, you have to be willing to look at the uncomfortable things in yourself, whether it's your thought patterns, again, habits, all these things, whatever it is, you have to be willing to say what it is, just call it out, call it for what it is. And then you have to be willing to just address it directly, meaning like, don't try and take the easier, softer way, so to speak, but just do whatever needs to be done to eliminate or mitigate or remove that, obstacle from your life or your space. And one of the ways we do this is make a plan, even if it's a bad one. And I'll be honest, personally, I struggled with this for such a long time. For whatever reason, I just had this aversion to, I don't know, just planning things out, thinking all the way through things. Maybe it was just immaturity for me for much of my life. But today, I realize that this is absolutely a necessary step to making progress in any area of your life. If you do not choose a direction for your life, you will go nowhere good. Building a meaningful, fulfilling, successful, whatever that means for you, life does not happen by accident. In fact, if you are not intentional, meaning you just take what comes your way and just kind of take things as they come, you're not proactive, but you're reactive. You're just going to react to whatever's happening in your life, kind of react to situations. And it's kind of this, you go through life in sort of a passive way. When you reach midlife, I promise your life will be depressing. Yeah, probably long before that, actually. And the truth of the matter is that to go anywhere meaningful, good, worthwhile, fulfilling, all of these things, it requires intentionality. We don't drift there. It's never going to just happen by accident. It requires that we make choices and that we do the work. This is another thing I talk about often, particularly with young people, is it's true for all of us, but I speak specifically to young people on this topic often is work is a requirement to make progress in any area. And sometimes we just have this tendency to think that things should be easier than they really should. And the truth of the matter is that if you see anybody that is good at anything, has been successful in any area of their life, I promise you they have put in a lot of work that nobody else sees. One of my favorite quotes is, it's the things that nobody sees that leads to the results that everyone wants. And I have found that to be true in my own life. So again, be willing to make a plan, even if it's a bad one. By the way, it probably will be until you get good at this. Make a plan. Doesn't have to be perfect. Again, I've joked about this. I'm a recovering perfectionist. I used to want things to be perfect. And maybe this is why I struggle making plans before. It might be a contributing factor is, maybe if I struggle with the idea of if I can't have it all figured out, then why even bother to make a plan in the first place? And that's a terrible strategy. So don't do that. The much better and more effective way to move forward in this particular area is to make a plan. And the way you make a plan is you figure out first where here is, again, starts with being honest. Okay, what am I not liking about where I'm at, or what's keeping me where I'm at when I really want to be? there, wherever there is. So you have to be clear about here. You have to be clear about where you want to go, what you're trying to accomplish. And then, whatever the steps are, as best as you can determine them between here and there, break them out into, as manageable, like say, bite-sized steps as possible between here and there. And the truth is once you start working towards, wherever your destination is, whatever your goal, whatever your dream is, the plan will change. You will adapt, and, there will be things that you didn't anticipate, and sometimes it'll be good, sometimes it'll be bad. But the point is that it's important that we make a plan and we start moving in the direction that we want to go. Even if the plan is imperfect, even if we don't have all the information, even if you haven't, you don't know what you don't know, whatever it is, have to make a plan, because we need to take action. And in order to take action, we need to know what action we need to take. It sounds obvious, but you'd be shocked at how many people don't, make any progress because they don't simply determine what the next steps are. And again, don't get too hung up on just making the quote right next step. Make a plan, even if it's imperfect, and then whatever that plan is should lead to a step that you can take, each day or each week, whatever it is. And, for me, sometimes I have to just make this step super small. If it's something that I really am not either familiar with or not overly comfortable with, or I might be prone to procrastinate, I just have to be honest with myself about that. And so make the steps as small as they have to be so that you will have no excuse and you will do what you need to do. I'll give you a personal example. I've talked about this before. When I started this podcast, I had never done a podcast before, and so many little parts of it were just very unfamiliar to me. I had little to no experience with content editing or any of that, and so I had to get some other people involved to help with that. And even creating content, I got a lot of things I like to talk about and a lot of things that are meaningful to me and that I, have a good understanding of. But so much of it was new to me and foreign. And so I was pretty inefficient at doing, kind of all the little components that go into making a podcast. And so I would find myself just procrastinating, or even, like I said earlier, just making myself busy instead of just doing what needed to be done to just make progress. And so what I had to do is I had to make the steps so small that it was like, there's no way I can not do this in a day. So for instance, when I would think about what I would want to talk about, one day I would literally just come up with a topic. That was it. That was my to-do list for the day as it related to the podcast, because there's no way I can procrastinate that. It's simple enough that like I can find time to just come up with a topic of what I want to discuss. And then the next day I'd come up with, the bullet points or the key ingredients of that topic, and I'd start putting that down. And I think you get the point. It's like, if things feel too big, and they can feel overwhelming. So it's like, I have to climb this whole mountain today, most of us won't even start because it just seems too overwhelming. But if you can just break things down, and this is key in making a plan, break things down into just small steps that you can take each day, that is how you get from here to there. And one quick note on this point, I had this conversation recently with a family member, a dear friend. And it's this, sometimes, speaking from personal experience, I used to feel that a year was a long time, let's say, or 2 years, whatever it is for you. When I was certainly, when you're in high school and those years, and then for me, definitely in my 20s, even a year or 2 years seemed like such a long time. And I bring this up because the further in life you go, the more you realize that next year is going to be here tomorrow. Again, metaphorically speaking. But my point is, time goes so fast. I realize this is cliche, but some of us, I think, just need to hear this again. Next year is going to be here no matter what. And a question you might want to ask yourself is, do I want to be in the same place that I am today, this time next year? Or what about 5 years from now? I think sometimes we just assume that things will progress or be different or get better with time. And there is so much data that says that that is simply not the case. That is not the case. And so if you want things to be different next year, 3 years from now, 5 years from now, whatever it is, it starts with what you're doing today. And it starts with taking small steps. And, I say this often, and it's very true. Consistency trumps intensity every day of the week. So if you want to make real change and lasting change in your life in any area, it requires that you do things consistently. Another one of my favorite quotes is, successful people do consistently what other people do occasionally. Think about that for a second. Anybody who's successful in any area of their life, the biggest difference is they do consistently what other people do occasionally. Again, using a very easy to quantify example of health and fitness. You can work out every now and then, and you'll get very little results. If you make it a part of your life to, have good workouts, several days a week, year after year, you will eventually be in great shape, even if those workouts are only, 20, 30 minutes, whatever it is. But done consistently over time, you get very substantial, very sustainable results. Whereas if you, again, work out occasionally, even if you work out for 3 hours and, kill yourself, if you're only doing it every now and then, you'll see little to no progress. And this is true in every single area of life. And so if you really want to make progress in terms of this piece of making a plan, think in terms of, how can I make my plan applicable today? How can I make it work today, so that I can take action? And if you do that, then again, you mitigate or get rid of the natural tendency to make excuses or to procrastinate. You want to make it so that it's not a mountain anymore, that it's just a step that you can take each day. My last point is this: do it anyway. Do it anyway. Here's what I mean. Whether it's tomorrow, whether it's a week, a month, a year from now, whatever you've determined that you need to do to get to your goal, you won't feel like doing it. There will be days, there will be times, many, many times, if you are consistent and have kind of meaningful goals that take time, there will be many times where you will not feel like doing it. Whatever it is that you need to do it anyway. When your mind is telling you to choose easy, choose difficult. This really starts with an awareness of like, okay, why am I trying to not do what I know I need to do? And if you're aware of it, then you can choose different. So instead of easy, choose difficult. Anytime that voice in your head starts making excuses or talking nonsense, you have to talk to yourself and remind yourself who you are, what you're after, and that you will not stop. I have to do this often with myself where, if I set some sort of goal for myself, and again, I'm just the kind of person that I'll set lofty goals. Like I don't want to live small. I don't want to sell myself short in any way. And so let's say I set a goal, or, I remember when I decided to start a company, and I set some lofty goals, and anytime I didn't feel like doing the work, I would tell myself something like this: Luke, this is what makes you different. You'll do it even when you don't feel like doing it. You'll do it even when it sucks. And And the truth is that's true. I will. And you can too. And this is the difference between people who win and people who don't. And this is the difference between people who succeed and people who don't. It's not that I have some special skills. It's not that I am so much smarter than anybody else. I just don't quit. I just don't quit. And I have failed more times than I can count. I've made more mistakes than I can count. But I just get back up and keep going, and you can too. And I don't say it any way other than to say that I'll put it this way. I used to think that people who were successful, that it was somehow handed to them, or that they must have had it easier, or some version of that. And I realized today that that could not be further from the truth. There might be outlying exceptions, but the rule is that people who are successful in any area do the work when they don't feel like it. And so I hope that this lands with you. Do it anyway. Whatever it is that you need to do it anyway, even though you don't feel like it, even though there's other things you want to do. If you want to make progress, even with something that you really enjoy or, would be really meaningful, there's going to be a lot of things to get there that you probably won't enjoy and won't be meaningful. But to get to the good stuff, you have to do the work. And so when you don't feel like it, we don't want to do it anyway. So again, just go back through these briefly. How to get from here to there. You got to be honest with yourself. Got to be honest about what's keeping you stuck. Honest about what's getting in the way. People, places, things, habits, whatever it is. Directly address those things. Don't dance around them. Don't try to pretend like it's not a big deal. If it's keeping you stuck, it is a big deal. Directly address it, whatever it takes. Then make a plan. Even if it's a bad one, it probably will be. Make a plan in such a way that you have a step to take today and a step to take tomorrow. So make a plan. Do it anyway. When you don't feel like it, do it anyway. I hope this was helpful for somebody. I think we all have goals and dreams. Again, even if that's to find a goal or a dream. And I promise you, you absolutely can do it. You got to be honest with yourself about where you're spending your time and energy. And if it's in service of the life that you want or not, you got to be willing to address the things that are keeping you stuck. You have to make a plan to do it differently. And you have to do it when you don't feel like it. If this was helpful, please like, share, subscribe. Talk to you next week.